Welcome to the Health and Wellness Show on your VOCM. Now, here's your host, Dr. Mike Wall.
Welcome to Health and Wellness Show. I'm your host, Dr. Mike Wall, and today we're going to talk about the importance of financial wellness for individuals, especially during these trying times, which hold a lot of financial uncertainty for folks. Today we're going to talk about getting to a place where financial stress is reduced and replaced by positive actions towards financial goals. And finance is a lot like health, and sometimes it's not taught in our schools. And in a perfect world, we'd be mindful of our money. But in the meantime, we've got to rely on some amazing experts like our two guests today. First person we've got here today is Mr. Ian Penney. He leads Newfoundland and Labrador's largest group of personal debt counselors in insolvency and helps with restructuring. James Noseworthy, he's a chartered accountant, a chartered insolvency and restructuring professional, and a licensed insolvency trustee with over 30 years in the field. Welcome to the show, Ian.
Thanks, Mike. Glad to be here.
And with you today, we have Emily King, who's the founder of richwoman.ca. She's a wealth and abundance coach, speaker, NLP practitioner, certified timeline therapist, and she also holds an MBA to boot. She's going to be going to be a fellow speaker at TEDx when that event happens this year as well. Welcome to the show, Emily.
Thanks, Mike. Happy to be here.
Yeah, I'm glad to have you guys here. I think this is such a relevant topic for people right now. Maybe you can start it off for us, Emily. What is financial wellness?
Financial wellness, and I think it's kind of, because I know, Mike, you're really into the health stuff too, and I think it kind of relates in the sense that, like, it's not as important necessarily the amount of money that is in the bank. It doesn't matter if you have $1 million or what, but as long as, like, there's, quote unquote, like, relationship going on, so to speak, where at least, like, you know what's there, you know what's coming in, what's coming out. And how I relate it to health is, like, you might be on paper overweight, but, or unhealthy. But if you're just taking those steps forward to get yourself into this wellness place, like, that's what I love to see with financial wellness, is just like getting out of the ignorance is bliss kind of mindset and just like, what can I do to help myself today? Be it one little tiny step a day. So that's what I love to see around financial wellness.
Okay. Ian, what's your perspective on this?
Well, I guess I tend to deal with people who are in financial trouble for one reason or another. Some people are, aren't working. Some people are sort of working poor with very, very low incomes, and others have great incomes and reliable, full-time jobs, but just can't seem to manage their money appropriately. So, I think for me, I'd have to say it depends. For someone who's got a very low income, a working poor kind of person, who struggles just to keep a roof over their head and food in the cupboard, I think that's real stress. If you can't pay your rent, you can't feed your kids, that's real stress. So for those people, just getting them stable to a point where they're on a budget that's sustainable for them, they know their rent's covered, they know they're going to have food in the cupboard. For some people, that's as good as you're going to get, maybe. For others who have good incomes but just can't manage their money, or maybe have made very unfortunate decisions in the past around, cars and relationships and houses and travel and things like that, same type of basic idea, get them on a sustainable budget, but for people with income beyond what's required just to cover the basics, the food, the shelter, getting them on a plan whereby they can save for their future goals and go into a new house or a new car with greater knowledge, ideally a down payment and, a sustainable payment plan and budget plan going forward. And I think for them it's wellness. Both cases, it produces a lot of stress, but sort of different ends on the spectrum.
Yeah, right. So it's kind of like a Maslow's hierarchy of needs. The first thing we need to do is survive, right, and get through day to day. And then from there, we can start to get to places where we're getting some of those additional benefits. Okay, so let's give some context to what we do. Emily, what do you do for people when you work with people when it comes to a money mindset?
Yeah, so typically with my business, I normally work with women entrepreneurs, and they could be anywhere from just starting their business, like pretty much day one with a passion and idea, or they might be years into their business and just be stuck. That's the big thing. Like if I were to like put it into one word, like they're stuck and they don't know how to build it and grow it. And it's kind of half and half. Part of it is the mindset, is just the beliefs, the things that they've told themselves of why they can't do something. So it's like that programming, if you will. And then on the other side of the equation is the practical things in terms of like okay, let's look at your packages, your service offerings, your price points, that kind of stuff, and see if it makes sense on paper, because sometimes they're just so busy with the day-to-day that they lose track of these numbers things. And once we sit down and look at it and kind of, go through it carefully, we can see where we can have a nice balance between the numbers and then the mindset component and the belief and the confidence to go out and do the things that we want to do.
Right. Okay. And Ian, you kind of covered it a little bit there too about what you do. You deal with a variety of different people as well, some of which are struggling and some of which you're trying to create an education around.
Yeah, so we almost triage people. So it could be an individual, it could be a couple with a family, it could be a small business owner. But basically we do the same thing. We meet with the person. We look at what assets they own, who they owe money to, how much equity they have in their house, their cars, those types of things, and then we go through a detailed budget with them to see, if their budget is sustainable. Are they in a car or a house they can't afford? Has there been a change in life that's caused this, or have they been sort of chronic overspenders? And then from there, we help to come up with a plan. Now, in some cases, it could be refinancing your house or accessing a consolidation loan, but the vast majority that we see, by the time they get to us, they're in, what I'll call serious financial trouble. And typically we'd be looking at a consumer proposal or a bankruptcy, which is done by my firm of licensed insolvency trustees, who are the only ones that do that in Canada.
Right. Well, it's funny, that type of stress can motivate change. Emily, I think that, one of the reasons you got into this field was because you had gone through a different stage of life and you had encountered some challenges and you learned about money. Is that right?
Yeah. Back in my mid-20s, coming out of my master's, I had tens of thousands of dollars of debt, and I didn't like that feeling. Someone who was normally really good with their money, but literally, being in school and not having the opportunity to work to make money and having to go into debt didn't sit well with me. So I really started diving into personal development books, money mindset books, and just obviously having a master's in business, I know some of the practical tools around it, but I just went all in on getting that paid off, and I got it paid off super quickly, and then started to build up quite a savings account. And then from there, I got motivated to share more of this with more and more people, because I saw so many people, especially in my age at that time, in mid-20s and even early 30s, just coming out of school, trying to start their families, build that, quote unquote life, but not having the financial capabilities to do so. So I wanted to do my part in trying to help motivate people and inspire people and give them hope and knowing that things can be different and, just try to help change their lives, really.
Well, maybe you guys can help me with this. So I think one of the things would be an attitude towards money, would it not? Like somebody, thinking for some reason it's better to go into debt to acquire something that they don't necessarily can't afford and not living within their means. I think that maybe during this specific period of time when times are going to be tighter for a lot of people, given the current situation of COVID, what type of challenges do people have to sort of mitigate, Ian? Like when it comes to managing how do they have to adapt to the new normal?
Well, I think the new normal is challenging for all of us, and who knows what that's going to be. But I mean, you still look back to the basics, and hindsight's 20/20. But in an ideal world, you would have been on a sustainable budget with a house that you can afford and a car that you can afford, and some sort of savings plan and an emergency fund to help you through. It doesn't have to be a dramatic emergency like this one. I mean, it could be a birth of a child or a sick partner, a job loss, whatever. I mean, life happens, and sometimes there's bumps along the road, and the problem is most people don't have a plan to deal with those bumps. So there's no savings, there's no emergency fund, and many people, every cent of their check is gone before they even get it. Yes. People tend to look at, can I afford the monthly payment and get, the best car you can get, the best house you get. And there's no room for error at all. And I often tell people, just because the bank will approve you for a $400,000 or $500,000 or $600,000 mortgage doesn't mean you should go buy that house. You got to look big picture. What's your plan in the longer term, and are you always going to be able to afford that payment?
Yeah. How does Canada stack up or compared to the rest of the country when it comes to debt per person? Or rest of the world, I mean, sorry.
Yeah, I don't. I looked at some of that a couple of months ago, and I haven't looked at it recently. But Canada recently passed the U.S. in terms of individual consumer debt, which is scary for a couple of reasons. Because mortgage debt in the U.S. is tax deductible, so they don't have as big an incentive as we do in Canada to pay off their houses, because every dollar they pay in mortgage interest, they get a tax break for it. We don't get that, and we still have more debt than them. So I think definitely the warning signs were there that Canadians were overburdened, and what's happening now, nobody could have predicted it, but unfortunately it's gonna create some serious problems for a lot of people, I think.
Right. Okay, well, that's going to take us through our first section. Let's jump to a little break, guys. I'm here with Ian Penney from James and Noseworthy and Emily King from richwomen.ca. We'll be right back after this break.
Now back to Dr. Mike Wall. This is the Health and Wellness Show on your VOCM.
Welcome back to the show. I'm here with Ian Penney, licensed insolvency trustee for James and Noseworthy, and Emily King, wealth and abundance coach. Today we are talking about financial wellness. At the beginning of the talk, we looked at what's the current set of circumstances, but now let's talk about the opportunity people have. I think that one of the challenges people face, and Emily, you can correct me if I'm wrong, but what's their attitude towards money, and how do they talk to themselves about money? Maybe you can elaborate that for people.
Yeah, so I think now is like the prime time not to, as they say, like should all over yourself. Like I should have done this, or if I had only gone back and, like you're saying, Ian, earlier, like don't, just because the bank, says you can get a $500,000 home, don't get the $500,000 home, and that's going to put you right at that edge. So there's a lot of shoulding that can go on right now, and that's like the last thing that's going to help us. Like, because, there's a saying, it's like driving a car, but looking in the rearview mirror, right? Looking at all the past mistakes or whatever. And so I feel like this is a prime time, like it's breeding ground for shame to come in, money shame. Mm-hmm. And I love what Brene Brown says about shame is that it needs three key ingredients: judgment, secrecy, and silence. And I think the judgment is a big thing right now. And the secrecy, maybe not as much, because if you're laid off, okay, people might know that you're a little more hard up, and the silence too. So I think now is prime time to, as difficult as this may be for someone, like just share it right now. Like don't put it on Facebook tomorrow. Okay, I'm in debt, or, but just find someone where it's a safe place, at least just start to express this a little bit. Or even if it is, a professional, like if you get a hold of Ian's company and just say, hey, this is really hard times for me right now, just breaking that cycle of the shame, I think right now is really key to stopping the bleeding, so to speak. Mm-hmm. I know that even someone that I know close reached out, and they weren't calling for a favor, but they just said, we're really struggling right now with our rent. And, next thing you know, within a week, a bunch of us had put together some money to help them pay for their rent. So just kind of breaking that cycle of the silence and the secrecy and the judgment of, oh my God, we shouldn't have done this or whatever, I think really helps. And it's simple. Maybe it's not easy to do, for some people, but it is the way forward. And, having that compassion for yourself and that empathy and just understanding that a lot of people are in the same boat, I think will help us move forward into getting solutions versus just hiding behind this shame or whatever might be going on for people.
Yeah. Well, Ian, you probably see people that are vulnerable too. They're coming in and they're wit's end. What do you tell your clients about their new attitude towards money?
Well, Emily is right. There is a lot of shame. There is a lot of embarrassment. And for a lot of people, just getting the nerve to admit that they need help and to ask for the help is a lot to muster. And some people struggle for months, even years like that. But, once they get in to speak to us or to a professional, just first of all, just to let them know that, there's a new day, there are solutions. And I always say to people, try not to look back, just look forward. You can't change what you've done in the past, but what we can do is get you on a more healthier financial path going forward. Try and change some of the bad behaviors that or mistakes that got you where you are, and hopefully you don't do the same thing again.
Yeah. There's a lot of memes going around about this period of time when some people are doing self-improvement and other people are just catching up on their Netflix. I think that there's an opportunity here for people to evaluate areas of their life that might need a bit of help. So what are the opportunities for education around finances people can partake in right now? I guess, Ian, if you want to take that one first and throw it to Emily.
Well, I think this really drives home to people how vulnerable they are financially, and it's an opportunity for them and their spouse or even their family, if their kids are older, to revisit their budget, really think about what's important, what their goals are. But I think the most important message there is, to change behaviors and to try and instill in your kids an understanding of, what a budget is, how money works, how interest works, how debt works. I have these conversations with my kids since they were very small. I gave them a cash allowance. A lot of people don't handle cash anymore, but if you got $20 in your hand and you spend it, it's gone. If you just got access to mom's debit card or Visa, you don't really appreciate having money and not having it. All you know is you pass in plastic, you get what you want. So, even basic things like that, it's a great opportunity to spend time as a family and talk about them.
Mm-hmm. Emily, what are you telling people to do right now?
Good question. Well, typically, like I say, in my world, I'm working with, mainly entrepreneurs. Like 98% of my audience are entrepreneurs. So it's all about pivoting right now, at least in my world. And I know not everyone out here might be an entrepreneur, but even still, there are opportunities to pivot and shift the ways that you do business, right? Or I can even think of, off the top of my head, at least like a half a dozen people I know who have skills, gifts, talents, whatever you want to call it, that maybe not be their day job, but if they put a little bit of time into it or what have you, it might be able to bring in, be it $100 a week or whatever. So I'm always about the opportunities that lie ahead of us. And so whether you get together with a girlfriend or a group of, mastermind buddies and say, hey, let's brainstorm some ideas. So from a generating new income, that's one opportunity. But I think to kind of Ian's point of like more than numbers and cents type thing, like this is a time to get real with your numbers, right? And we have all the time in the world now, like we're all hanging out home. So maybe if you got kids, it might be a little more challenging, but this is the time to pull out those bills. I mean, it might be tougher now than normal to look at it, but so many people I talk to, when I ask them about their debts that they might have and payments and that kind of stuff, and I say, okay, well, what's your interest rate? They're like, I have no idea. Mm-hmm. Or, what's your payment schedule for this? Oh, I don't know. I just pay, whatever I'm told to pay a month. And so this is the time to really like put on the big girl pants or whatever you want to call it and just like get cozy and comfortable with your numbers. And the banks, I know they might be swamped right now, but if you can, book in a call appointment with your banker or whoever, or someone like Ian or whoever it might be, a professional or someone who's good at numbers, just to start to take a closer look at that and see going forward when things do get back on track, what can we scale down on, where, ways that we can improve. And even if you call your bank to ask for lower interest rates, all sorts of opportunities lie ahead. But now is the time to just like pick one thing that you possibly know might help you going forward.
Yeah, that makes sense. I took up budgeting a couple of years ago and I got really into it. And I thought it was really fun. I found out how to save like $100 here, $50 here, and you cancel this. And it really made a difference. And then it became actually fun to save. And I look forward to seeing my statements and my detailed breakdown, so I can see that. Okay, let's go through a little scenario real quick here, okay? So say I'm somebody who is probably a lot like a lot of people listening right now. And we'll start with you, Ian. And I walk into your office, and I'm pretty upset. Like, I've got a lot of debt. I might have lost my job, and now I'm on a form of income support to try and get me through for the next little while. I really don't know what to do. What advice would you give somebody right off the hop of where to start? Well,
the reality is most of the people I see, by the time they come to see me, they know they're in trouble and they're in pretty severe financial difficulty. I mean, the big thing is to try and realize you're heading down a bad path before you actually get to the destination and your wages are being garnished, or you're missing payments or missing car payments or your wages. You got to have your wages to pay your bills because, most people, like I said before, their check is gone before they get it. So I think it's just that honest assessment of where you are. And if you're married, you need to have that discussion with your spouse. A lot of the people we see, one spouse has no idea the level of debt they're in and the amount of trouble they're in. It comes as a shock to them. So I think that's where you start, and then you got to find someone to speak to. We actually developed a little online tool, no.nl.ca, a couple of years ago, just a simple financial quiz, and it points out, if your wages are being attached, if you're getting collection calls every night at home, if you're only paying the minimum interest payment on your credit cards, these are all warning signs. And, one or two of them, you might be able to survive it. But if all these things are happening to you, you're actually in pretty severe financial trouble in all likelihood. So I think that's when you need to reach out to a professional and get the help you need. And I think the benefit that I have is I'm objective. If you're into a car you can't afford, I'm going to tell you need to get rid of it. If you're into a house you can't afford, I'm going to tell you that too. So I think just an objective person who looks at things from, in dollars and cents and what you can afford and what you can't and what your budget can handle, as opposed to the emotional, well, I can't give up my house or I can't give up my car because I'm emotionally attached to it, or, my wife loves the house, she'll never leave it. I can get past all that and just look at the dollars and cents. And, well, maybe you're in a house you can't afford. Well, okay, if you're going to spend an extra $300 a month on your housing costs, or $500 a month or more, well, guess what? That's got to come somewhere else from your budget. So maybe you got to give up your car or have one car instead of two cars, or those types of changes,
Mm-hmm. Yeah, well, that's important. When we come back, we're going to start talking about how people can start to be really progressive and get to that place of being in a positive state of cash with their finances. I'm here with Ian Penney, licensed insolvency trustee from James and Noseworthy, and Emily King, a wealth and abundance coach. We'll be back right after this break.
Now back to Dr. Mike Wall. This is the Health and Wellness Show on your VOCM.
Welcome back to the show. I'm here with Ian Penney, licensed insolvency trustee for James and Noseworthy, and Emily King, wealth and abundance coach. Emily, we had a nice little conversation during the break. I might have used the wrong term when I was talking about my finances earlier. Can you clarify?
Yeah, so I find that, with my work and with neurolinguistic programming, like that's one of my coaching trainings that I've done, the language that we use, the linguistics, right, is so important. And so sometimes the words that we use can really create this invisible barrier for ourselves. And so when you said a budget, for some people, when they hear the word budget, it's like you've just sent them to their room or something. They're like, go to your room, stay there, and don't leave until you have money in it. So it's very depriving. And so, people want to live a good, happy life. And so to tell them to go do something that's depriving, they're probably not going to, be jumping for joy to go do it. So one of the words that I change is, instead of calling it a budget, I call it an action plan. So that way it puts me in power, puts me in charge, and has me feeling good, like I'm doing something positive versus I'm being punished for what I've done. Right.
I compare it to the word diet when it comes to nutrition. It's almost the same way. You change your way. You have a new way of eating, a new way of controlling your finances. Okay, so still with you, Emily. How does somebody start with a plan?
With an action plan, yeah. So now, I'm not a financial advisor, so this is just what works for me. Is literally I take I open up my Visa bill, I open up my checkings account or any accounts that have active money coming in, coming out, and I get an Excel sheet out. If someone's not an expert in Excel, well, you don't need to be. Get out a good old sheet of paper and pen or whatever you have there, and start writing out every single thing that is on this thing. So your dog food that you buy, your alarm system, whatever it is, I write it all out, and I get an idea of where I sit with my money, expense-wise. And then I just look at what's coming in each month from my business and with my husband's paycheck and that kind of thing. And then I go from there. I work out, in Ian's case, what's the difference? If I'm bringing in, say, $5,000 a month and my expenses are $5,000 a month, well, then we got a problem. Or if it's very, on that borderline, hovering around there. So I look at, what are ways that I can either bring in more? Are there opportunities there? And in my case, running a business, that's kind of my first place I look. But if someone's kind of locked into more of a 9-to-5 type thing, well, then you're going to look at what are ways that we can reduce the cost. And so that might be cutting some subscriptions or memberships or what have you, or renegotiating different contracts that you have with cable or cell phone or what have you. So, yeah.
Mm-hmm. Well, so Ian, you probably go through the same type of thing. You said you were very non-biased when it came to people and their expenses, and you say, you need to get rid of this, this, and this. Same sort of thing. Do you walk through things with people to sort of educate them and let them see what the issues are?
Yeah, and I think Emily's onto something. The action plan, because it takes commitment and it takes buy-in. And you're right. If you view it as punishment, well, you're not going to want to do it. But people value things differently. So one of the first things we try and get out of people is, well, what are your goals? What is short term, medium term, long term? And for some people, sort of with lower incomes, they might be happy just to be able to pay their bills every month, have a roof over their head and food in the cupboard, and they don't want to own a house. Maybe they want a car, maybe they don't. But for some people, it's just stability. And for other people, particularly younger people starting a family, it might be, well, we want a house. Well, house requires a down payment. And once you get in your house, you got to furnish it. So what, we then get them thinking about, well, what kind of a down payment and what's your time frame? Well, if you need $20,000 and you want to have a house in 2 years, well, the math's not very hard. You need to save up something approaching $1,000 a month. So for most people, that's not possible. So then you sort of bring them back to reality and say, well, maybe it's going to be 5 years, and because you can save up $400 a month, but you can't save $1,000 a month. So it's that type of discussion. Other people may not want a house. Maybe they want to travel. Maybe they want to have a car. Maybe they want a big car. Some people might even want a summer house. So it really depends on the individual, what type of income they have to work with, but more importantly, what their own individual goals and values are.
Yeah, and I'd love to add to that, Ian, because I love how you talk about the values. And I think to add to that, it's like, giving them that shift and that kind of positive perspective of okay, like say someone's sitting down, in front of me and they're like, well, I love going out to eat and that's not something that I want to give up. But you look and it's like, $800 a month that they're spending and it's just two of them or something, well, we can probably cut that back to $400 a month. And so one way to kind of reframe it is not like, this is not a sacrifice and like you don't get to go out anymore, but switch it so it's a choice for empowerment. So if they can see the numbers of like, okay, I used to spend $800 a month on eating out, I'm going to cut it back to $400, and that extra $400 I'm saving, this is empowering me, and this is my conscious choice so that I can get the down payment on the house or get that car that I want or get that trip that I want to Florida or whatever it is that they want. So it's not seen like I can't get this and now I got to save this stupid money because Ian told me I had to or whatever. It's like, no, I'm making this choice. I'm choosing not to go out tonight. But because of that, I get to put that $50 or $100 into my bank account and put it towards my travel savings or whatever it is. So it really comes from that empowering place versus you can't have this or you can't do that kind of feeling.
I think that's a common trend in all aspects of wellness is that there's so much these days, with everything. So people can overdo with food, they can overdo with, being inactive, or they can accumulate too much stuff. And sometimes it ends up having adverse effects on us because it's pleasurable and pleasure is good and we want more of that. But at the same time, sometimes it can lead to bigger issues. So actually, if we're talking about the wellness side of things, maybe you guys could share a little bit more about like how does like the financial stress people are dealing with, because it's real stress. How does that affect our health? Ian, do you want to jump in on that one?
Well, a lot of people we see, I don't know if the financial troubles are the symptom or the problem, but lots of things go with financial trouble. It could be addiction issues, it could be marital troubles, it could be a sick kid, it could be job loss. So it all sort of there's often more than one issue going on that caused the financial trouble. So one of the other things we try and do is really understand the person. What is it that caused them to get there? Is it just they've been a chronic overspender for years and been on an unsustainable budget for years, or was there some life event that has caused this that once it's addressed, they should be able to go forward in a more healthy way. But like I said before, I mean, for people that can't pay their rent, can't buy groceries, I mean, that's real stress, no question about it. And just to relieve them of that is very powerful. But someone going through a separation or divorce or someone with a sick child, I mean, that's also pretty stressful. And it impacts the income. It impacts all aspects of your life. So, helping, we can work through the financial piece with them, but often there's something more required, whether it's counseling or whatever, to help them deal with the other issues that are part of the larger problem that contributes to their overall health and wellness.
Okay. Emily, what about you? I know that you've got a very well-rounded approach towards helping people when it comes to that.
Yeah. So you're looking for or my general take on financial wellness?
Yeah, basically, like how does the financial how can it be negative to our health, but also positive to our health when we start to be able to control our finances?
Yeah. So I've seen a wide spectrum of cases, and I think of a past client of mine who I worked with last year, and when she came to me, it was like the robbing Peter to pay Paul kind of situation, like, and she was kind of with what Ian sees like minimum wage, like she was working 50 hours a week, like she was at her max capacity. So where I start, with that, and just where so to back up, in her case, it was very stressful, right? And it kept her up at night wondering how she's going to pay her rent, that kind of stuff. So how I kind of transition it is to start, like, they're not going to jump from A to Z, overnight and feeling, financial despair to the next morning waking up and be like, all is well, I can pay my bills, it's all good. But just that shift of just that knowing inside of like, I'm going to make some small decision today to better my financial education or wellness or whatever it may be. And so in this case, she reached out to me. We started working together, and we, like I said many times before, I'm about like finding the opportunities. So she asked for a raise at work, and then she had a side business she was doing, and we ramped up that side business for more classes that she was offering and raising her rates and that kind of stuff. So more of the financial abundance started to flow in to make it easier. And then one thing led to another, and before she knew it, she was gone full time in her business. So it was really about 4 or 5 month period where she went from like the A to Z type thing. But where it started was just getting back to the thing I was mentioning earlier about like just stopping that secrecy and the silence and the judgment, right? And so you go from that mental angst and that stress and that worry to, okay, I'm going to take one small step today. I'm just going to reach out to a professional, or I'm going to pick up a book, or nowadays with internet and YouTube, there's infinite number of resources that you can access, even just reading an article. So just making that one little step forward can be really positive. And knowing that you're not alone, that's a big thing that I find is one of the things that I love about doing group programs in particular is when the people in the program are like, wow, I thought I was the only one like this. So I think just saying this to the audience listening here today, like, you're not alone. Even though you think you might be in the worst situation or whatever you might think is different about you, like, there is somebody else there just like you hiding as well. So just knowing that you're not alone and just coming out from that wall that you've placed in front of yourself and just sharing with whoever you can.
Yeah. Go ahead, Ian.
So, Mike, sometimes, we see the effects immediately, the relief that people feel after they get the advice and they see a way out of their troubles. Typically we'd meet with somebody one day, explain how everything works to them around an insolvency, and bring them back the next day or the day after that to sign them up. And lots of people I meet with at that second meeting actually say, you know what, we actually slept last night. We had a good night's sleep for the first time in a long time. Or, we didn't fight last night. We actually had a nice night together. So there's that sort of immediate sense of relief that's positive. But I also run into people and get Christmas cards and things from people I helped years ago that will tell me, one guy wrote me a Christmas card this year. I think I helped him 2 or 3 years ago, and he actually just qualified for his first mortgage. So he was very proud of that, and that was one of the goals he set a number of years ago, and he's actually now achieved that. So obviously that would be very satisfying for him to meet that goal, and now to have a his own house for his family kind of thing, and to have met that goal that he set a number of years ago. So it can be very positive on the outside or on the backside of the process, and obviously that helps with people's overall health and wellness.
Now back to Dr. Mike Wall. This is the Health and Wellness Show on your VOCM.
Welcome back. We're here with Emily King, Wealth and Abundance Coach, and Ian Penney, Licensed Insolvency Trustee for James and Noseworthy. We've been chatting about financial wellness, and it sounds like financial wellness is a pretty important aspect of our lives. It affects us in a lot of different ways. So I'll throw this one at you, Ian. Why don't we learn about it in school?
Mike, I don't know. A lot of us in this sector have been advocating for not only better financial education in school, really any financial education in school, because it just doesn't exist, and it's so important to people's how they live and how successful they are in life and so on, and it's just not touched on. And I think the other sad part is most families or many families don't do it either. So there's just a huge gap. And I guess if as a parent, if you don't have good financial skills, well, guess what? Your kids probably aren't going to either. So and breaking that cycle can be difficult. But, it just starts with an honest discussion about it. And, there's lots of online budgeting tools and articles to read and things. But I think it's like anything. To get something out of it, you got to put the effort into it. The schools aren't doing it, so I think as a parent, it's your job to step up and do it, and for your kids. And if you're a single person or a couple or whatever, I think you owe it to yourself and your partner to get yourself on a more positive financial track as well.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, take a lot of stress down. Well, there's a couple ways we can do this. Emily, why don't you walk through people some simple things that almost anybody listening could apply tomorrow to try and get some more money in?
Yeah, so I love me a good negotiation, and I love saving a buck. So a couple years ago, I think it was, for fun, because I'm weird like this, I was like, how much money can I save on different services? Looking at this action plan and that kind of stuff. And so I called up my internet provider, my cell phone, what did I call it? My alarm system. I called up basically anything that had a monthly occurring thing, and I just talked to the customer service, and I spoke to them nicely and said, I'm looking at this, and I'm looking for ways to save. Is there some sort of customer loyalty thing you can offer, or even 10% or something like that? And every single one came back with a yes.
Mm.
And sometimes, this is not always the case, but it's worth a call, because here's the thing, is that calling is free. It might cost you just for your cell phone plan itself, but essentially calling is free. The 10, 15, 20 minutes it might take for you to call is free. So you might as well try, because at the end of the day, it could save you hundreds of dollars, in a year, which is nice to have in your back pocket instead of theirs. The other thing that you can do is sometimes, and Ian, you probably know this more than me, is sometimes even call your credit card and ask them if they can lower it by a few interest points, or if they can swap you to a different one. I was just sharing today on Instagram that I had a client a few years ago, after getting more cozy with her finances. She realized that there was this credit card insurance that she had been paying each month on her credit card bill without even noticing it, and she had been off work ill. And she called a credit card company, and this insurance, I think in this case, it paid her outstanding balance in full. Read the fine print. But some people out there might even have insurance that they can lean on, especially now when you're laid off or, unemployed or off sick or whatever. Have a look at the fine print at different things that you might have. And even, send in your insurance receipts. If you have old massage receipts sitting around, this is the time to really find the money that's sitting in your house that you might have been just too lazy to do before.
Right. Yeah. Free money. Ian, anything else you'd add to that?
No, I think you're onto something there, Emily. And but it takes effort, and you do have to call up and you do have to ask. But the savings can be huge. One of my kids recently wanted a new cell phone, and of course you get the text comes, and for $10 extra a month you get the latest phone, so they of course wanted to do it. The phone they had was fine, but aging. So we actually took the opportunity to have a discussion about how those bills work. So I said, okay, well it goes up by $10. Doesn't seem like a lot. But guess what? You're 18 years old. That $10 is never going to go down. You're going to pay that the rest of your life. And the next time you get another phone, it's going to go up by another $10. And, before you know it, you're going to have a cell bill that's hundreds of dollars. So why don't we look at buying the phone and what that means? So when I took my kid to the store and told the guy I wanted to buy a phone, and he looked at me like I was crazy. And he said, no, nobody buys phones. I said, no, well, explain to me how it works. So it turns out, if you buy the phone, in this case anyway, not only did you not get the $10 increase, you got a $10 decrease. So $10 came off the bill. The phone was $600 or $700, I forget. So I made a deal with my kid, as I do with a lot of major purchases. They pay half, I pay half. So they paid $300, I paid the rest, and their cell phone bill went down by $10 a month. So, I mean, the problem with that is, of course, you've got to have the money to buy the phone, but it just goes to show that you need to investigate, understand how these bills work, because they'll keep adding $10 to your bill for the rest of your life, and it'll never go away. It never goes down again. It just keeps going up unless you intervene like I did. So, you know, and all those things add up over time. Could be internet, could be cable. You know, could be the other big one is cars. People getting a new car before their old car is paid off, and they trade in the old car and they owe on it more on it than it's worth. Well, guess what happens? The extra $4 or $5 grand gets tacked on the new loan. So then when that one, then you're into a cycle of the loan getting bigger and bigger and bigger, and you never ever owning your car, and the payment keeps getting bigger too.
Yeah, sometimes that's not worth that new car, is it? Especially because more. You don't get a deal when you're overpaying for it.
Right.
That's the thing. I think that a lot of people just need to think about things creatively. And let's just switch gears a little bit here and talk about how industries may be changed financially coming out of this. For example, I called up the other day to get takeout from 3 restaurants that never did takeout before, like nice restaurants that typically only be sit down in the past, and they were all sold out. And I know that obviously they're going through tough financial times, but how can people take a new view on being creative around their finances during this period of time? Who wants to go? Ian, you want to jump on that one real quick?
Sure. Well, I mean, I run a small business too, right? I mean, I'm in the service industry, and I'm licensed and regulated by the federal government, but there's no assistance for me right now. I got to figure out how to keep my employees working and keep money coming in the door, and we've gone from a model where we all worked in the office all day to very quickly having to figure out how to work from home. So, you know, all my people are working from home. We're still open for business. We're doing things by email, video conference, phone calls, whereas a lot of it would have been face-to-face before, but we're still functioning. We can still manage to get you signed up if you need an urgent bankruptcy or something. We can do that all remotely now. And, 2 months ago, that would have been unthinkable, but we had no choice but to adapt. Now, I guess the big question is what happens when things go back to normal? Do we continue to work from home? Do we continue to use all these tools that we're learning now? Or do we go back to the old way of doing business with, face-to-face meetings and things like that? And I don't know, but I think it's a time to be creative, try and adapt. This is going to be our reality for the medium term. This is not going to be over next week. It's probably not going to be over next month. So if you're a small business owner, you need to adapt, and you need to adapt quickly.
Mm-hmm. Emily?
Yeah, I mean, I love, as hard as it's been, and not to sound insensitive, I know some companies where it's just hands-on service, they maybe right now can't offer something, but I've seen a lot of creative solutions come, which I think not only helps, their business grow, but also helps their clients access it much, much more easily. And the interesting thing is, I think of, for example, the Pilates studio that I go to here in town. They've now switched to doing Zoom calls for their classes. And I think, okay, they've gone from now a market that's in, St. John's, Mount Pearl, that kind of area, to a global market now. They have 7 billion people they can reach now with their classes. And so I think it's a brilliant time for business owners to get creative, find new ways to be more efficient with their business, find new audiences. Yeah, it takes a bit of shifting of gears, but I've seen a lot of business owners kind of get some projects in place that were on the back burner for months, if not years, that they now just within a day, had it going. So I love seeing the creativity that's come and all the new things, and me as a customer, it's been wonderful to receive it.
Perfect. All right, we're almost done our interview here, guys. Ian, 30-second closing remarks, and how can people reach you if they need to get a hold of you?
Well, right now, our website and our online financial health quiz is probably a good place to start. We do answer the phones during business hours, so you can still get us the old-fashioned way. But I think it's a good time to really look at your finances and make a decision. Obviously, there's a lot of federal relief money coming now. People should be availing of that. They should be speaking with their banks around deferral of mortgage payments, car payments, those types of things. But, deferral is the key word there. They're not going to magically go away. At some point, you're going to have to deal with these debts, and interest is continuing to accrue and so on. So just be honest about where you are, and if you need help, reach out for it.
Perfect. Thank you. And Emily?
Yeah, probably the best place. Yeah, the best place to find me is head to my website, therichwoman.ca. One thing I forgot to touch on was there's actually a meditation on there. It's called the Abundance Meditation. This was created years ago, and I think it's really fitting for now because one of the mindset components, I meditate every day, and I find it just kind of calms my nervous system, gives me that clear head so that I can move forward in the best possible way for that day. So people can download that. I know I've gotten a lot of feedback lately saying it's been really helping, so they can download that for free. And I'm on Instagram as well at Emily King Co. So they can check me out there too.
Well, thank you for that, Emily, and thanks for being here. And thank you for being here too, Ian. Glad to have you on the show.
Thanks, Mike.
Thanks, Mike. Thanks, Emily.
Well, that's been today's show, guys. I've been here with Ian Penney, licensed insolvency trustee at James & Noseworthy, and Emily King, wealth and abundance coach. I'm your host, Dr. Mike Wall, and we'll see you back here again next week.